Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Barb Hemme. I do mostly the general ledger and financial piece of Epicor and Kinetic. And today we are going to go over automated AR invoicing. Most of us are used to invoicing under the shipment screen, but there are a few things that we can do to help us get invoices into the system that are different than just shipments. We'll go over some of those again next week when we do AR shipments, and we'll include a little bit on miscellaneous. But today we're going to go under the automated invoices. So the first thing that we have is recurring invoices. These would be used when the same product or services occur on a specific schedule. So if you, for example, bill somebody rent once a month, you could do a recurring invoice, which would mean you'd put it in one time and then it would be available for you to pull in future months. This and some of the other invoices we'll be looking at are also available under accounts payable. Not the advanced billing, which is our next section, which is customer invoices created prior to shipping products or services and matched to a sales order line. We'll go through these in a little bit more depth on the future screens. Deposit billing invoices are used with a customer gives a down payment or a prepayment and it's linked to an order, but it's not matched to a specific sales order line. So recurring invoices. Recurring invoices you have to set up under a recurring cycle and you have to attach it to a recurring source invoice. So I'll show you where the cycles are in just a minute. Cycles refer to monthly, weekly, annually, daily. You can set them up for however you would like to pay invoices. And once you set it up, it is available in both AR and AP. We then enter an AR invoice and we mark it as recurring. The first invoice will always be in a batch for processing, and then future batches will be pulled in and processed as our normal accounts receivable. And then we generate those recurring invoices for the next payment cycle. An advanced billing invoice, we create a regular accounts receivable batch. We select new advanced billing when we look at our drop-down box, and we'll see this in a few minutes. These are sales order line specific. And they're very touchy, meaning that if you have 5 lines on the sales order and your salesperson says you're supposed to, for example, get a $50,000 down payment, you might want to spread those advanced billing lines by all the sales lines. If you put it only on line 1, then when you pull in the final payment, it will show up as line 1 only and not the other lines. So you do have to make sure that you do the advances on this attached to the specific sales order line. Then we process the batch as usual. The advance will now post to accounts receivable, but the offset will be deferred revenue, not sales. That's because we haven't shipped the product, and according to revenue recognition, we can only account for the sales when we've actually shipped. Then, when the product is actually shipped, we pull the shipment in as usual, but the advanced billing amount will be deducted from the invoice amount, and so you will have a net billing. If they've prepaid the entire invoice, then at that point in time, it would result in a 0 invoice and the system should just close out that invoice and make nothing available as a receivable. The third kind is deposit billing invoices. So there's 2 ways that you can do deposits. One is you can actually enter a deposit billing invoice. It allows you to print an invoice if needed for a customer. Or you can create directly in cash receipt entry. If no invoice is created and no sales order is referenced, you'll wind up with a category called UR in your accounts receivable listing, and you'll have to fix that. So let's go over and take a look at how this works in Kinetic. Everybody's time is limited, and I want to leave you a little bit of time for answers. So I've created a few groups just so that you see where we're at. We're in accounts receivable, general ops, and then I went right to the AR invoice entry. Let's just recreate it. So let's call this just put it recurring. Okay, and we want to put a date of 2022, February 1 of 2022. Just type it in, it's be easier. And we're using 2022 because there is some data out there, so we'll do the best we can. And we want an apply date of 2/1 of 2022. Okay, so here's where I have my test databases and test data. So we go into accounts receivable, AR invoice entry, and I've got several groups out here, and we're going to do the test recurring first. And you notice that I have several out here in this batch. I've dated it 3/1 of 2022 just because that's where most of the information in our test database is located. And so I just added a new invoice. To add a new invoice, you would just click the plus button down here on the bottom row. I'm going to show these to you just for time's sake. So I added this invoice, and it looks just like a regular invoice. In this case, you can see that it says reference invoice 1003. That's because I set up an invoice in a entry in a first batch, and I said that this is my initial invoice going into the system, and that 1003 actually posted to January of 2022. And then I went to get invoices, and I'll show you that in a second. And it pulled in the invoice and changed the invoice number to 1003. It gives us the apply date of 2/1 of 2022. It shows that it's ready to calculate, and all the information came in. And my lines came in as well and are showing monthly rent. So when I pulled this in a second time, so now if I go to 1006, and you notice the date here is March 1st of 2022, it now changed the invoice date to 3/1 of 2022, and it changed the reference invoice to I kept it at 1003, which again was my initial one. So how did I get those? That's an easy fix. We can go to add a new group, and this one we're going to test recurring 2, and we're going to put in a new invoice date, and we're going to put in apply date 2, and the dates really don't matter for this. We're going to save this, and we're going to add a new invoice, and we're going to pick some kind of sales order. You don't have to. If you don't have a sales order, you don't need one. We do need a sold to customer, so we're just going to pick Addison Incorporated, which is in our test database. We're going to put our rent income. We want the invoice date now to be the current month. We want it to apply whatever date we want, so I would put it the same date. Best practices. Shipment date doesn't really matter for this, and we can actually save this. So now we want to change this invoice to a template, and so we're going to add a line on invoice detail. We need to go down to the bottom part of the screen, and you'll see it says recurring. So we need to check the recurring box on here and save it. Cycle code I've already sent up as monthly, and we save it. And now it's in there as a recurring source. So we just have created our template. We can put the line detail in, and then we can just don't have to pick a part if it's not a part. And we're just going to put in the description, rent, and we're going to put in the extended price of $1,000 a month, and we've just created our invoice. But you get the idea. So that's what it looks like when we have a recurring invoice in the system. Then what you're going to do is when you do a new batch, you can actually on the batch level pull in the templates. So let's go back and I'll show you that one more time. AR invoice entry, and we're going to Just put in test 3 and it applied the invoice date. And I'm just going to show you that when we pull in our invoice type, we get to the get and we get to recurring invoices down here. And I'm going to select all, and it's going to give me a whole bunch of recurring. Well, it should have given me the recurring invoices. And apparently the system is not working correctly. So let's go back. And I'm going to select one of my other groups. And this time I'm going to take my advanced billing. And in this batch, I have an advanced billing. So you can see here on the advanced billing, and I have not posted this. This is actually an advanced billing invoice. I've picked that February 1st of 2022 date. And this time I'm going to I'm going to click on deferred revenue. When I click on deferred revenue, I actually will get this going to, and we can try an edit list. It didn't work yesterday, but I will try an edit list and see if it'll come up. And we're going to pick all books, main book, and we'll see if we can get it to print preview. It's going to look like a regular invoice. It's just going to be an advance bill. And then when we do the final billing, we would pull that one in. And I do apologize for the technical difficulties. Everything worked perfect yesterday. So now if we get a deposit payment, we can put an invoice into the system, or again, we can put this into a cash receipt. You'll notice that it automatically checked it as deferred revenue. That's because this deposit invoice, we have not shipped it again, and so it'll automatically put it into deferred revenue for your use in the future. So if we go back and we look at the reports, there are a couple reports that'll be able to help you see some of this. One is the advanced billing deposit report. The advanced billing deposit report, you can filter it by only advanced billings, only deposits. Advanced billing would should equal an amount on your general ledger, your balance sheet. You'll need to set these up when you set up your general ledger chart of accounts and your GL control codes. It'll automatically book it and book it to the correct account for you to analyze, and that will be the backup for your report. You will also see when you print out your aged receivables, you'll see a UR. If you've received something on account and you've put it in under cash receipts, it'll show up under aged receivables. An advanced billing will show up until it's paid, and a deposit balance will show up as a UR until you have matched it to a final invoice. So that concludes what we were looking at under invoicing. And are there any questions?
Can
Okay.
the unapplied receipt be tagged for a specific sales order after it has been received?
Yes, it can. And that would be part of the process. And we'd be more than happy to train you in depth. Remember, this is only just a tickler on what's in the system. We'd be more than happy to train you on that particular way of handling the system. It's not difficult, but it's easier to show you in something that's not a 15-minute training.